I'm Julia Listengarten, Artistic Director of Theater UCF, and I am moderating our Talkback tonight. Thank you for watching Blood at the Root by Dominique Morisseau. This show is produced in association with the NAA-sponsored art exhibition, Illuminating the Darkness, Our Carceral Landscape, that was on display at UCF Art Gallery from August 27th through October 1st. This show, this virtual production, is our first production, first virtual reading in a series, Amplify, Empower, Illuminate, 4 plays, many diverse voices. I'm very excited to have our panel with us tonight, and they're members of the cast and creative team. And in just a few seconds, each panelist will introduce themselves, and then several of them will share their thoughts about the process and what the process and the play meant to them. And after their brief remarks, we will open the discussion up to your questions. So please, as questions arise, submit them through Q&A, and we will address them in best fashion. And there's also a chat feature that's enabled. So in case you'd like to share your thoughts or observations, you can use the chat feature, but make sure that in order to answer your question, you need to submit your questions through Q&A. This Talkback is being recorded, and the link will be posted on Theater UCF website. Please make sure that the questions you ask are on topic and respectful. Thank you very much. And now I would like to welcome our panelists who will introduce themselves.
My name is Omari Booker. I am a guest visual artist, and yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you all this evening.
Hello, I'm Joel Zishuk. I was the video design and production crew member along with Ben Lowe as a co-artist.
Hello, my name is Gerald Kitt, and I played the role of DeAndre, and I also worked as choreographer.
Hi, I'm Issa Jones. I played the role of Asha, and yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is McCoy Stewart.
I knew take it home, Emily.
I knew it was going to happen. My name is Emily Williams, and I assistant directed the production. McCoy?
Hi, my name is McCoy Stewart, and I played Justin in Blood at the Root.
Hi, my name is Blake Parker, and I played Toria.
Hi, my name is Athena Jean-Etienne, and I played Raylan.
Hello, my name is Woodrow Jackson Helms, and I played Colin.
Hello, I'm Taylor Wyckoff, and I was the dramaturg for this production. And so, if I'm the first to speak, I guess the dramaturgy for this started back in the spring semester with Chloe Ray Edmondson. She teaches theater history, and she had this play on her syllabus. And so at that point, I was on board as a dramaturg, and so that's when we started developing these conversations, not just about the text as a vehicle in a vacuum, but we wanted to talk about why are we doing this play now, which has really grown since the summer, since the meteoric rise of Black Lives Matter in the world. And so one of the biggest things that I really wanted to pinpoint was where does Blood at the Root stand in the broader tapestry of Black art? And something that was so significant into the text was how the playwright used rap and R&B and hip hop and turned them into these dramatic forms. And so something that I really wanted to do was tie it to Black music as a whole, as we're seeing now. And because around the time the play was first premiered, albums like Lemonade and Damn and To Pimp a Butterfly, A Seat at the Table, were just coming out, and it coincided with the rise of Black political music. And so that's why I made the playlist I made. And another conversation I had with Chloe was about blood at the root in terms of trauma, and how it's not just the individual trauma of the people that experienced what happened in real life, but also the trauma on a national level, like we've seen now, how the deaths of George Floyd don't just affect the people that were immediately in his life, it affects every Black American. It is a shared trauma. And how this play, because when the biggest thing for trauma survivors is reconstructing the memory of it, and so they can create some sort of sense. And to me, this play is that it is a shifting tapestry of all these different memories and perspectives of what happened with the Gen 6 in order to create meaning and find some essential truth in the text and what happened.
All right, I'll go ahead and say a couple words about the directing process itself. So we began this process before the idea of coronavirus running everybody's lives existed. We did intend to originally put this on a stage, but but now, honestly, we're just thankful that we were able to do this story in the first place, especially right now. We truly do need this story right now. But we had an easier time because we had such an amazing cast come together, and the minds that we have on the creative team. It took a load off of me and David's plate quite a lot. The fact that our creative team could take a story that was meant to be put on the stage and that we meant to have an audience live with and breathe with, and they just so seamlessly put it on a computer screen. And yeah, it was an honor to see how much this process allowed us to grow through it. And in the end, it turned out to be like a really, really good thing. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, again, my name is Omari Booker, the guest visual artist. I actually work out of Nashville, Tennessee, but have gotten to spend some time at UCF working on this production, and also had some artwork in the Illuminating the Darkness, our carceral landscape exhibit that just they're just on view in the gallery there at the university. But yeah, as far as the art making process, it definitely shifted a lot, because of course we did think that this would be on a stage, and we thought that we might use projections on either on backdrops or things that you can build, just all different types of materials that you might use when you're viewing something in person. But the timing of the show and the timing of this production is so important that I'm kind of grateful that this is the way that we're doing it. I'm grateful that the world has had to slow down enough to pay attention to these issues and to not look at this as some historic thing that might have happened a long time ago or that couldn't really happen in today's world. But we've all been really, really viscerally reminded that this happens every single day in every single city to every single person of color. And as Taylor spoke to, the trauma is on both sides. I mean, it's historical trauma from inflicting the kind of injustice that's happened, as it is trauma that you as being the oppressed. I think as oppressors and oppressed, I think people are starting to realize that neither side can survive and exist. And so very little of that has to do with art. And I think very little of my art has to do with art making. I think it is ideas and being able to tell stories. And I'm really grateful that I could share in this process with, an amazing cast and crew. And just, I got a whole new UCF family out of this deal. So I'm grateful. Yeah, thank you.
From an acting standpoint, I think this was really different. Definitely. I mean, this was very different. We are so used to just having one another to breathe and work off of, and especially an audience, like losing that, I know for myself was kind of scary. I didn't know how I was going to find that energy, because I think a lot of it comes from the other actors. It's bouncing off one another, and I thought that doing this online, I was afraid we'd lose that. And I'm really glad to say that we didn't. I think we all really had connections with one another, even though we were through a screen. And I think we still were able to breathe a beautiful life into this story, even if it wasn't conventional. And I'm just so glad that we still got to share a story that's so pertinent to now, even if it wasn't how we all imagined it would be. You know, we rolled with the circumstances, and I really think we did it justice.
Yeah, building off that, I think what really helped with not losing that connection is, I know this cast worked really hard prior to starting rehearsals, because we had like 3 days really where we got to rehearse with each other in the internet. And so I know we did a lot of research before we even got there. We talked to Emily and David and to each other. We made rehearsals before we even got to the actual rehearsals. And I think that was really important, and what really made this come to life is because we didn't just go, okay, we have the 3 days, we'll just wait till then. Once we knew we were casting this, we started the work at that point. So we still had weeks where we were like, who is my character? What is this story? Why is it important? And yeah, I think that really came through, especially in this different kind of medium that we did. But it was an interesting experience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about the process. Now, I think, let me see, there's some questions that are coming in. There's a question, another question about acting. From an acting standpoint, how do you find that your focal points change when you're acting on camera, particularly on either Zoom or Skype? So maybe McCoy, if you don't mind, you can address that question.
No, for sure. I was able to, well, one, it was really scary to just think, again, Athena said it best, of just not having people in like the same space and just that culture of theater. However, I found a little tactic as we were like playing with the platform of Skype, where I was able to like put a little frame right by where my camera was at the top of the screen. So I tried to make it as visceral as possible for myself in regards to like acting towards the person, and then the camera would hopefully see the interaction between us. But that was sort of like a way of acclimating to doing it on Skype, and it helped. I hope it read through.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to answer that question from an acting perspective? How different that process was from a live theater event?
Yes, I'll answer. It was the difference between figuring out if it looked weird looking at the person you're talking to in the box or looking at the camera. And like we did come to the consensus that it's best if you look into the camera. So it was kind of strange having the little black dot on your laptop being your focal point. But it is something you got used to, and just like listening to the sounds of the actors instead of seeing them right in front of you. It was a big change, but it's something that we had to work around.
Well, thank you so much. You did it beautifully. Well, there's a question for Omari. Omari, could you talk a little more about the art you created for this show? What was your process and inspiration, and how did you collaborate with the team at UCF?
Yeah, the art that I created some small pieces that, I mean, I've actually got them here, so I may let you check them out a little bit. But yeah, I created some small pieces that could really be shown at any size. So if you sort of see the tree, there's actually an institution, so a prison cell. And I was trying to find kind of a color scheme that wouldn't really take too much away from, there's the house, a color scheme that wouldn't take too much away from the actors. I really wanted to complement what was going on stage, because I didn't really, we didn't want the artwork to be a focal point, really. It's not like I wanted you to be looking over my shoulder or over their shoulders at a piece of artwork that's kind of dominating the process. But working with with Andy and Joel and Ben and everyone, everyone that during the process was really more thinking about concepts that could tell the story and give some visual interpretation to what Dominique Morisseau was saying. And her work is so complex, and there's always a million different sides to look at the situations. And so we didn't want it to be anything too specific or too direct. I wanted it to be pretty open, and I think that's probably the short version of how we came to that. And so it definitely took a good bit of brainstorming, just looking at the imagery that was going on, and which imagery would be kind of beating the audience over the head with things that the text are already telling you. And we didn't really want to do that. We didn't want to kind of overdo what the actors were saying with the artwork. We kind of wanted to have that as a compliment. So that worked out.
Thank you so much. Well, another question will, in a way, build on the previous question, and then that's more for Joel. Can you please discuss your part in this design process, Joel, and your work with Ben and Omari and Vandy Wood?
Absolutely. So this process went from, I started out as the lighting designer, and Ben as the projection designer, and Vandy as scenic, with Omari staying on as the guest artist throughout this process. And it kind of turned into just the overarching video, where the scenery became the projection, and I lumped on board to help work through the process and create the technology behind how we got them to the virtual stage. And so we spent multiple meetings figuring out what this space would be, how that would look, and one of the items David told us is we don't want to make this the same as every other Zoom show that you've seen. It was a very prominent point that we were trying to stay away from. And we also didn't want to beat the audience over the head and say that we're in a schoolyard or we're in the hallway. And so we worked through a few different ways of trying to incorporate Omari's imagery and matching that same style throughout the entire process, and giving a contrasting background that just shows where they are on stage.
Thank you so much. And then another question, which again is related to previous questions, is about Gerald's choreography in connection to Omari's visual art. So the question goes, the combination of Gerald's choreography with Omari's visual art struck me as one of the production's most brilliant moments. I wonder if Omari, Gerald, or the rest of the cast crew can speak on this experience of working across multiple media, theater, dance, music, art. Did you learn new skills as a result of this cross-disciplinary collaboration? So maybe Gerald will begin.
Okay, so the dance. First, it started like because we were gonna do the whole production. So I went in thinking that I was gonna have all these different bodies to play with, make all these different type of images. And then I got the email that it was just gonna be me. But we still need to tell the same story. And I realized that theater, being in person, and film are two different things. So everything on film had to be very precise. And I had to make sure that it was for the camera so that they can see exactly what I'm doing. but it was nice to be able to take a lot of different takes to like get different things. And there was a lot of back and forth with David about what we wanted each moment to be, and like how the movement can tell the story of how this person is feeling, because there's no words. So there was nothing that I could actually say, but through the movement, I tried to incorporate. And then with the film, you know, so yeah.
Okay. Another question is really for everyone on the panel, but probably mostly for the performers. Since the cast could see each other during filming, but couldn't see the actual output while you were working, tonight when you saw the show, you know, what was your reaction? Did you see anything different from what you had imagined? So maybe Athena will start, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I don't mind. I generally had no idea what it was gonna look like, so I was just like, oh, that's cool. Like it was so strange, I think, for me, because I was so used in the rehearsal process just to see all of our green screens and like, oh, that's what's going on. So it was so nice to see how everything was put together, and like it all was really cohesive to the story. It made a lot of sense. And I think it was just nice to see that everything rounded out, and it was really nice to see. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if my castmates had different thoughts, but I genuinely had no idea what was going to happen.
Anyone else? McCoy, yes?
At first, like how a regular Skype call is, I thought that's how they were recording it. I thought we were just gonna I thought it was just all of our panels and then like it was just a read through. I didn't know that they were like picking our panels and like putting us on this separate thing. And that was crazy. Like when we saw, I think it was the first trailer that came out, I was like, wow, so this is what it is. But honestly, it made me feel great. I think we were all a bit heartbroken when we couldn't put this on stage, but the effort that everyone put into creating it in this medium, like I have no words, literally. Especially when they pushed it back, they're just like, you have to give us 1 week. I was just like, okay, like some good work is coming out of this for sure. So at the end, I'm very, very, very satisfied with the finishing product.
Hey, Emily?
Yeah, so actually during the rehearsal process itself, we would have like a backstage call on Zoom, and then the actors and the stage managers, they would be on Skype. And then in like the last 2 days, we were having a live stream on YouTube, so we could see the finalized product. So you could talk to, you know, Vandy and Joel and them on Zoom, talk to the actors on Skype, and then go to YouTube. So a lot of the rehearsal, a lot of time was me and David not hooking up to the audio on Skype, so we couldn't hear when people wanted us to go to Skype, but we would hear it 20 seconds later on YouTube. So we would be just staring into Skype for a while, just kind of waiting to catch up. So there was a lot of communication barriers, but we overcame them pretty well. Not easily, but we did it.
Thank you. Maybe Woodrow would like to say something.
Sure. Like some of my other castmates, I truly had no idea how it would come together and what exactly we were going to be looking at. And I think that, you know, honestly, just the power of this play and some of the great work that our editors did, it really exceeded my expectations of what it was going to be. I mean, being called a staged reading almost seems like an understatement for the show, you know? So I have to give it up to the editors and to the people who put it together. I mean, I was personally just really, really impressed and really blown away by, you know, the work that what seemed like just me sitting in front of my MacBook behind a green screen, you know, turned into this really awesome piece. That was something really cool to experience. So
Great, thank you. There's a question about the themes of the play and how you sort of discussed or related to those themes. I'd like to read the entire question. Did being in the show in any way give you a different perspective about any of the topics discussed? Did you have any moments where you really needed to stop, to pause and consider what these words meant and the reality of them? Gerald?
So when we first started rehearsal, even though we only had like 3 days, David started by just like sitting us down and saying like, what does this play like talk about? What are the themes in it? What is it telling? And we realized that it was telling so many things at the same time, which is why it's like one of my favorite shows, because it's not only just about one thing. There's a lot of different topics in it. And we each expressed like which topics, because depending on who you were, that topic stood out more to you. And it was interesting to see that after everything, the show was just about people and human beings, in that everyone does bad things, everyone does good things, and it's just the human race type of thing, where it's just everyone can make mistakes. Everyone is also, no one's perfect, basically. Because even though there are people with faults, other people have faults in other places as well. So it was just very interesting for me going through the process, seeing that like, yeah, I can point my finger at this person, but then there's also times where I can point this finger at myself. And that's what I learned throughout this process.
Athena?
I want to piggyback off of what Gerald said. For me specifically, playing Raylan, I think I really had to like get in the mindset of like, she, in the surface value, is this young woman who's really fighting for justice and wants to see a change in racial equality. And I think that that is a beautiful statement. But it was also hard to see that she was really blinded as well, especially with her relationship with Colin. I think when I first read the play, it was really hard for me to swallow at first. I'm like, how can you support something so much and you're doing the same exact thing to someone else? And it's exactly what Gerald was saying, that there's no villain in this story, there's no hero in this story, they're just humans and they're flawed. We're all flawed, and it's just about those roots and what do you want to become of that in the future? Are you going to take those same lessons from the past and not change anything about it? Like that's I think for me, that's what really blood at the root meant. It was just, are you going to really look back and see everything that happened and keep reliving it with the same hatred? So that's something I took from it.
There's a related question specifically for Isa. How did Isa relate to her role as a white person being part of the struggles of the Black community?
Okay, well, I guess what Asha is just a very interesting character, and I think an important character too. And I guess this question, the best way to explain it is in the show, the part where Asha and Ray, you see that how this experience at the school affects Ray and how it affects Asha, and how Asha is not understanding why Ray is taking the nooses so hard. She doesn't get why it's such a big deal. And it's because she doesn't have the struggles of the Black community. She's white, so she gets to have the parts of the Black community that she likes, but she doesn't actually feel all of that other stuff that goes along with the things that Ray or DeAndre feel, or the Black community, because she's white. So she doesn't, those things don't affect her. But I think it was really an important contrast to show how she played this part for the show, and then the push comes to shove, and she's like, oh wait, I don't want to identify with that. I don't want the hard part of being Black. I don't want that stuff. And I think good thing to show it. And it happens a lot where people are like, oh, we love the Black community. Oh, but I don't want to stand with them when it gets hard. So I think that was a good point to bring up in the show, is an important thing that does happen today all the time. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a few questions left. So there's a question, sort of a more general question. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you encountered during this process of creating a virtual production? And I understand that depending on what perspective you have, that challenge might be different. So maybe I'll ask Emily first as a director.
Sure thing.
You can talk about it.
Yeah, so I was really excited to stage this play because I wanted to have a cast that that knew this, just having a team that knows the text and then just having them play and just do it over and over again and just have them make choices that's why I am drawn to the idea of directing. When we took it to a virtual setting, I found that my focus was more on making, honestly, it was focused more on making it more consumable for those who are watching, instead of let's explore this story through what our actors' instincts. It was more of focusing on the language and trying to find some kind of cadence and rhythm. So yeah, we lost a little bit of the freedom and exploration, but we did gain a lot more focus on the text itself.
Thank you. Anyone else? Maybe someone can address a sound process, because I know that was really central for designers and actors. Joel?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So one of the major challenges that we had within this production was making sure that the audio and the visuals were synced up in both the live feed that we were giving the directors, the feed that we were trying to hear in the space, and what we were giving to you all as the audience later on. And so we actually had our audio output of the cues that were happening, those underlying beats that would fade between scenes, giving you transitions, as a separate complete track that the actors couldn't hear during the process. They weren't able to hear it. Same with the videos. They weren't able to hear those just because of the challenges of the virtual environment. And so we had to put those all in post and get that all lined up there, along with getting the syncing of the actors' lips to their audio, as we had some slight desyncing problems throughout the process. It's a very different space that you have to go into when you're looking at a virtual setting, because you're not going to go in with professional mics for everyone. You don't have that audio mixer who has every single person in their own lane that they can control individually. It becomes a little bit tougher, and you get some more gremlins, as we'll call it, that we don't really have the solutions for until we work through the process.
Thank you, Joe. Would any of the actors like to address this issue, Blake?
Yeah, so I think that probably we could all agree that the emotional connections between, like, since I'm looking into the camera for most of it, making those connections between and trying to read the character that I'm talking to. So most of my scenes were with McCoy, and I would just be hearing him, and usually I'm working off of his facial expressions, his nonverbals, and all this kind of stuff, but having to take him in at a smaller, less digestible level was definitely probably the biggest challenge. And then also going off of what Joel said, there were a few times where we had to be synced to audio that we couldn't hear. So, like, for example, I had a monologue in there that I was told to do in 45 seconds. And so I was rushing through the monologue, and I could tell that even in the final product, there had to be a couple seconds snipped out of there. So there were a lot of challenges that were thrown onto this that aren't in a normal theater production, but I think it was pulled off pretty well.
Thanks. Anyone else? Yes, McCoy?
Going based off of what Blake and Emily had to say, the way Dominique writes, there's an obvious rhythm to the text, right? So now we're online and we have to deal with different internet connections. And I remember Blake and we were able to meet a couple times before we actually started rehearsing online. And after a couple of reads, we were starting to get the rhythm of it. Things were starting to flow and everything was nice. And then we get to our first rehearsal and we have to completely 180 adjust. We have to I remember at moments when all of us are talking, we have to anticipate talking while the other person is talking. So when the audio comes out, it flows seamlessly. And it was a lot to track, but we were able to get it down. But just the rhythm was something that we had to how do we do this? We had to approach it in a different type of way. And I guess another personal problem that comes with doing this on Skype is unmuting and muting yourself. Sometimes that's not a normal thing to do. So you hear someone give you your cue to start the scene, and you start your scene and you realize 30 seconds in you were muted this whole time, and the stage manager is telling you to put your mic back on. So that's a struggle that we eventually overcame by Thursday when we filmed. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you addressed the issue of language, because the way Dominique Morisseau writes is incredibly poetic, and I understand how challenging it was for all of you to capture this beautiful poetry that Dominique offers us. And I think you did a wonderful job. It's really captivating performance. There's another question for Omari, and there's actually a connection to an earlier question, because it has to do with your other work in theater. So there's a question if this is your first work, and I know that it's not. And I know that you actually did work on another play by Dominique Morisseau. So maybe you can say a few words about that, Omari.
Yeah, definitely. I worked on Pipeline, which was another Dominique Morisseau play that was at TPAC, Tennessee Performing Arts Center. And yeah, another just incredible piece that she, that she wrote, and I thought that cast did a great job also. So I've had a couple of opportunities to work with theater, and it's always kind of a different muscle. It's very much a team, it's a team sport, and here in my studio with visual art, that's pretty individual. Most things that I make, I kind of, create from start to finish and then do the exhibit or whatever. So it's different in that, but I really, really enjoy kind of getting to have the energy of cast and crew and other creative energy. I think is a beautiful thing, and I'm always really, really grateful when we get to have that cross-pollination someone spoke of earlier. And music also. Music's a huge influence of mine, especially hip-hop music. So, and hip-hop artists, and the way that they have gone about their careers, but also their business sense too. So yeah, having that mix of music and theater and visual art is very, very natural. And I have had the chance to do it a couple of times, and always enjoy it.
Thank you. And your work was in the art exhibition that I mentioned at the beginning of the Talkback.
It was, yeah.
So it was truly cross-disciplinary, transdisciplinary work that you were creating,
Sure.
and really contributing this cross-disciplinary component to this production. So thank you so much, Omari, for your work on this show.
Thank you.
Well, we are approaching time. It's 9:45 and it's getting late. Everyone is exhausted. I'd like to thank all of you for the incredible work that you actually accomplished on the show, and obviously the panelists, but everyone else. Our sound designer, who is not here, who worked day and night trying to fix the sound. I'm sure you're aware of that. And the design team was incredibly supportive. So everyone, thank you so much. It was our first experiment, really, with a virtual reading, and I'm incredibly proud of your work. So I would like to invite our audience to come to our next show next Saturday. It's Mahara by Luis Alfaro, directed by a guest artist who was actually our graduate student a couple of years ago, Ana Martinez Medina. And Mahara premieres next Saturday at 7 p.m. and we will have a talkback after the show. So again, thank you so much, and enjoy the evening. Bye-bye.